You know that moment when your entire world shatters in front of hundreds of people, and you can't even scream? That moment when you realize the person you loved more than life itself has chosen someone else, someone who was never really there. Yeah. I lived that moment. My name is David. And this is the story of how my daughter broke my heart at her own wedding, and how a forgotten diary revealed a truth so devastating, it changed everything. Let me take you back to where it all began. Not to the wedding day, no, we'll get there. But 17 years ago, when my little girl, Emma, was just 8 years old. That was the year my marriage fell apart. That was the year I became the villain in my own daughter's story. I was married to Claire for 12 years. We had Emma when we were young, barely out of college. Life was tight, money was scarce, but we were happy. At least, I thought we were. I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat, morning shifts at a warehouse, evenings doing freelance graphic design from home. Claire stayed home with Emma, and honestly, I thought that was the deal we made. I bring in the money, she raises our daughter. Simple, right? Wrong. One night, I came home late after finishing a big project. I was exhausted, barely holding it together. I walked into our bedroom and found Claire packing her bags. Just, packing. Calmly. Like she was going on a vacation. "What are you doing?" I asked, my heart already sinking. She didn't even look at me. "I'm leaving, David." Those 3 words. That's all it took. My legs felt weak. What? Why? What happened? She finally turned to face me, and I saw it, that cold, empty look in her eyes. The love was gone. Maybe it had been gone for a while, and I was just too busy working to notice. "You're never here," she said. "Emma barely knows you. I feel like a single parent. I can't do this anymore." I tried to argue. I tried to explain that I was working for us, for her, for Emma. But she didn't want to hear it. She'd already made up her mind. Within 2 months, the divorce was finalized. Claire got primary custody of Emma. I have weekends and alternate holidays. And that's when he showed up. Richard. The man who would replace me in every possible way. Claire met him 6 months after our divorce. He was everything I wasn't: wealthy, available, charming. He worked some corporate job that let him leave at 5 every day. He had time. He had money. He had everything I couldn't give. And worst of all, Emma loved him. At first, I thought it was just a novelty. A new person in her life, someone who bought her toys and took her to fancy places. But as the years went by, I watched my daughter drift further and further away from me. Every time I picked her up for the weekend, she seemed more distant. More annoyed that she had to leave Richard's big house to come to my small apartment. I tried everything. I took her to her favorite restaurants. I planned special trips. I showed up to every single school event, every recital, every game. But nothing worked. In her eyes, I was the dad who left. I was the one who broke the family. And Richard? He was the hero who saved her mom. By the time Emma turned 16, our relationship was barely hanging on by a thread. Our conversations were short. Our weekends together were silent. She spent most of the time on her phone, texting her friends, or probably him. And then came the wedding announcement. Emma called me on a Tuesday evening. My heart actually jumped when I saw her name on my phone. She rarely called anymore. "Hey, Em. This is a nice surprise. Dad, I'm getting married." I froze. Married? She was only 25. We hadn't even had a real conversation in months, and now she was getting married. Oh, wow. That's amazing, sweetheart. Congratulations. Who's the lucky guy? His name is Jason. You'll meet him at the wedding. Not before. Not at a family dinner. Just, at the wedding. When is it? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. June 15th. Save the date. I'll send you the details. Of course. I'll be there. Emma, I'm really happy for you. There was a pause. A long, painful pause. Thanks, Dad. I have to go. We'll talk later. Click. That was it. No excitement in her voice. No, I can't wait for you to meet him, or I'd love your blessing. Just cold, distant formality. But I held on to hope. I thought maybe the wedding would be a turning point. Maybe she'd realize how much I loved her. Maybe walking her down the aisle would remind her that I was still her father. I had no idea what was coming. I had no idea that in just 3 months, my heart would be ripped out in front of everyone I knew. And I had no idea that a small, forgotten diary would reveal a truth that would destroy me, and then save me. June 15th arrived like a storm I couldn't escape. I woke up that morning with knots in my stomach. I'd barely slept the night before. I kept rehearsing what I'd say to Emma when I saw her. Maybe I'd tell her how proud I was. Maybe I'd finally break through that wall she'd built around herself that I put on my best suit, the only suit I owned, actually. I'd saved up to buy it just for this day. I wanted to look good. I wanted her to be proud to call me her father. The wedding was at some fancy estate an hour outside the city. The kind of place I could never afford. The kind of place Richard probably paid for. When I pulled into the parking lot, I felt so out of place. Luxury cars everywhere. People in designer clothes stepping out like they were walking a red carpet. And then there was me, in my 10-year-old sedan, clutching a card with $500 inside, money I'd saved for months. I walked into the venue and immediately felt the stares. Or maybe I imagined them. Either way, I felt small. I found my seat. 5th row. Not front row, that was reserved for Claire and Richard. Not even the 2nd row. 5th. Like a distant relative nobody really wanted there. But I told myself it didn't matter. I was here for Emma. That's all that mattered. The ceremony started. The music played. Everyone stood. And then I saw her. Emma, my little girl, was walking down the aisle in the most beautiful white dress I'd ever seen. She looked like an angel. My eyes filled with tears immediately. This was my daughter. The girl I used to carry on my shoulders. The girl I taught to ride a bike. The girl I read bedtime stories to every single night. But she wasn't looking at me. She was smiling, glowing, holding onto someone's arm. Richard's arm. Wait. No. My heart stopped. My breath caught in my throat. Richard was walking her down the aisle. Not me. My daughter chose her stepfather to walk her down the aisle. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I just sat there, frozen, watching the man who replaced me live out the moment I'd dreamed about since the day she was born. People around me noticed. I could feel their eyes on me. Whispers started. Heads turned. I wanted to disappear. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. But I couldn't leave. I couldn't cause a scene. So I just sat there, tears streaming down my face, watching my daughter give away the one moment I thought I'd always have. When they reached the altar, Richard hugged her. She hugged him back. Tight. Like he was her real father. And then she glanced at me. Just for a second. Our eyes met. And she looked away. No smile. No acknowledgement. Nothing. I don't remember much of the ceremony after that. I was numb. I clapped when everyone clapped. I stood when everyone stood. But inside, I was shattered. At the reception, I tried to approach her. I wanted to at least congratulate her, tell her she looked beautiful. But every time I got close, she was surrounded by people. Richard was always nearby, laughing, taking photos, playing the proud father. Finally, during a quiet moment, I managed to catch her near the edge of the dance floor. "Emma," I said softly. She turned, surprised. "Oh. Hey, Dad. You look beautiful, sweetheart. Congratulations." "Thanks." Silence. I wanted to ask, I hesitated, trying to keep my voice from breaking. "Why didn't you ask me to walk you down the aisle?" Her face hardened. Just slightly. But I saw it. Richard raised me, Dad. He was there. You weren't. Each word was a knife. "Emma, I was there every weekend. I came to every event. I tried." "Trying isn't the same as being there," she interrupted. "Richard was there every single day. He helped me with homework. He drove me to school. He was at every dinner. You were just, the weekend, Dad." I felt my chest tighten. "I worked those jobs for you. To support you. To give you a good life. I didn't need money, Dad. I needed you." And just like that, she walked away. I stood there, alone in the middle of a celebration, feeling like the biggest failure in the world. I didn't stay for the rest of the reception. I couldn't. I left quietly, drove home in silence, and cried for the first time in years. That night, I kept replaying her words in my head. Richard raised me. You weren't there. Was she right? Was I really that absent? I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought working hard to provide was what a father did. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe I lost her a long time ago, and I was just too blind to see it. I thought that was the end. I thought I'd lost my daughter forever. But 2 weeks later, something happened that changed everything. 2 weeks after the wedding, I got a call from Claire. That alone was strange. Claire and I barely spoke unless it was about Emma, and even then, it was usually through text. "David, can you come over? I need to talk to you about something." Her voice sounded off. Strained. Worried, even. "Is Emma okay?" I asked immediately. "She's fine. She's on her honeymoon. Just, please come over. It's important." An hour later, I was standing on the porch of the house I used to call home. The house where I used to live with my family. Now it was Claire and Richard's house. Seeing it always hurt. Claire opened the door. She looked tired. Older. Like something heavy was weighing on her. "Come in," she said quietly. I followed her inside. Richard wasn't there, thankfully. I didn't think I could handle seeing him right now. We sat in the living room. Claire was holding something in her hands, a small, worn notebook with a faded purple cover. "What's that?" I asked. She hesitated, staring at the notebook like it might explode. "It's Emma's diary. From when she was 13. My heart skipped. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because." Claire's voice cracked. "Because I found it while cleaning out her old room. And I read it. And David. I think I made a terrible mistake." She handed me the diary. I looked at her, confused. "Claire, I don't understand." "Just read it," she whispered. "Start with the entry from November 10th. The year she turned 13. My hands were shaking as I opened the diary. The pages were filled with Emma's handwriting, young, messy, emotional. I flipped to the date Claire mentioned. November 10th. Did I hate my life? Mom and Richard had another huge fight today. He yelled at her so loud I could hear it from my room. He called her useless. He said if it wasn't for his money, we'd be living on the streets. Mom cried after he left. I tried to hug her, but she told me to go to my room. I wish Dad were here. I wish we were still a family. My throat tightened. I looked up at Claire. She was crying. Keep reading, she said. I turned the page. November 17th. Richard took me shopping today. He bought me a new phone and told me I'm lucky to have him. He said Dad never cared about me. He said Dad left us because he didn't want to be a father. Don't think that's true, but I didn't say anything. I miss Dad. I miss our weekends together. But Mom says I should appreciate Richard more. She says he's the one taking care of us now. Another page. December 3rd. Richard told me today that if I keep talking about Dad, he's going to stop paying for my school. He said I need to choose. Either I appreciate what he does for me, or I can go live with Dad in his tiny apartment. He said it like Dad's place is disgusting. I don't want to lose my school. I don't want to lose my friends. So I stopped talking about Dad. But I miss him so much it hurts. Tears were streaming down my face now. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold the diary. Claire, what is this? I whispered. Keep reading, she said, her voice barely audible. January 8th, age 14. I saw Dad at my recital today. He was sitting in the back. I wanted to run to him and hug him, but Richard was right next to me. Richard said if I embarrass him by acting like a child, he'll make sure Dad isn't invited to anything else. So I just waved. Dad looked so sad. I hate this. March 22nd, age 15. Mom and Richard are making me call him Dad now. They said it's disrespectful to keep calling him Richard when he's done so much for me. I don't want to. He's not my dad. But they said if I don't, there will be consequences. I don't even know what my real dad did wrong. I just know I'm not allowed to love him the way I used to. I couldn't read anymore. I closed the diary and looked at Claire, my vision blurred with tears. He manipulated her, Claire sobbed. For years. I didn't see it. I was so grateful for his money, for his stability, that I didn't see what he was doing to our daughter. He turned her against you, David. He made her believe you abandoned us. And I let it happen. I felt like I was going to be sick. Where is he now? I asked, my voice shaking with anger. He left. We had a huge fight after I found the diary. I told him to get out. He's staying at a hotel. I stood up, the diary still in my hands. I need to talk to Emma. She doesn't know I found it, Claire said quickly. She's been conditioned to believe Richard is the good guy. If you confront her now, she'll defend him. Then what do I do? I shouted, my voice breaking. I just lost my daughter at her wedding because of the lies he fed her for years. What am I supposed to do? Claire stood up and grabbed my hands. We expose him, she said firmly. We show Emma the truth. But we have to be smart about it. And that's when the plan began. The next 3 days were a blur of planning, anger, and heartbreak. Claire and I went through Emma's entire diary together. Page after page of manipulation, control, and lies. Richard had spent years poisoning Emma's mind against me, and he'd done it so subtly that even Claire hadn't noticed. But it wasn't just the diary. Once Claire started looking, she found more. She found text messages between Richard and Emma from when she was 16, messages where he'd bribe her with gifts and trips in exchange for spending less time with me. Messages where he'd badmouth me, calling me a loser and a deadbeat. She found emails where Richard had lied to Emma's school, telling them I was unreliable and shouldn't be listed as an emergency contact. She even found a recording, a voice memo on an old phone, where Richard was coaching Emma on what to say to a family therapist. He told her to say that I made her uncomfortable, that I was emotionally distant, and that she felt safer with him. None of it was true. But Emma was just a kid. She believed him. "I feel like I don't even know who I married," Claire said one night as we sat in her kitchen, surrounded by evidence. "Why didn't you see it?" I asked, not accusatory, just broken. "Because I didn't want to," she admitted. "After we divorced, I was so angry at you, David. I thought you chose work over us. And when Richard came along, he seemed perfect. He had time. He had money. He made me feel like I mattered. I ignored the red flags because I didn't want to be alone again." She looked at me, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry. I failed you. I failed Emma. I let that man destroy our daughter's relationship with you. I wanted to be angry at her. Part of me was. But I also understood. We were both victims of Richard's manipulation. He saw a broken family and exploited it. We fix this," I said. "We tell Emma the truth." "She won't believe us," Claire said. "She's been conditioned for over a decade. If we just tell her, she'll think we're trying to ruin her image of Richard." "Then we show her," I said, holding up the diary. "We let her see her own words. We let her remember who she used to be before he got in her head." Claire nodded slowly. "We need to be careful. If we push too hard, we'll lose her forever." "We've already lost her," I said bitterly. "What's left to lose?" The plan was simple but risky. We'd wait for Emma to come back from her honeymoon, then invite her over for a family dinner, something we hadn't done in years. Claire would host, and I'd be there. During dinner, we'd gently bring up the past and then present the diary. It sounded easy. But I knew it wouldn't be. When Emma got back from her honeymoon, Claire called her. "Hey, sweetie. How was the trip?" "It was amazing, Mom. Jason and I had the best time." "That's wonderful. Listen, I was thinking, why don't you and Jason come over for dinner this weekend? I'll cook your favorite. And, your dad will be there too." Silence. "Why?" Emma asked, her tone immediately defensive. "Because I think it's time we all sit down and talk. As a family." "Mom, if this is about the wedding." "It's not. I promise. I miss us being together. Please, Emma. Just one dinner." Another long pause. "Fine. But if this turns into some kind of intervention, I'm leaving." "It won't. I promise." The dinner was set for Saturday night. Those few days leading up to it were torture. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what I'd say, how I'd explain everything without sounding like the bitter ex-husband. Saturday came. I arrived at Claire's house early. She was in the kitchen, cooking Emma's favorite meal, lasagna with garlic bread. The smell reminded me of the old days, when we were still a family. "You ready for this?" Claire asked. "No," I admitted. "But we don't have a choice." At 6:30, the doorbell rang. My heart jumped into my throat. Claire opened the door. Emma and Jason stood there, smiling. Emma looked happy, relaxed. Seeing her like that made this even harder. "Hey, Mom." Emma hugged Claire, then noticed me standing awkwardly in the hallway. "Dad." "Hi." "Hi, Emma. Good to see you." Jason shook my hand. Nice guy. Polite. I wondered if he knew about any of this. We sat down for dinner. The first 20 minutes were painfully awkward. Small talk about the honeymoon, about Jason's job, about the weather. Emma kept glancing at me suspiciously, like she was waiting for me to ruin the evening. Then Claire took a deep breath. "Emma, there's something your dad and I need to talk to you about." Emma's face hardened. I knew it. I knew this wasn't just a dinner. "Please, just listen, I said gently. It's important. If this is about the wedding. It's not about the wedding, Claire interrupted. It's about Richard. Emma stood up. I'm leaving. Emma, please. No, Mom. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to sit here and listen to you trash Richard just because Dad's feelings got hurt. Emma, he lied to you, I said, my voice shaking. For years. She stared at me, eyes cold. What are you talking about? Claire slid the diary across the table. Read it. Emma stared at the diary like it was a ghost from her past. Where did you get that? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. I found it in your old room, Claire said. I was cleaning out boxes and... Emma, you need to read it. I don't need to read anything. That's private. You wrote about what Richard did to you, I said, my voice breaking. You wrote about how he manipulated you. How he turned you against me. Emma's face went pale. That's not. I don't. Please, Claire begged. Just read it. Read what you wrote when you were 13. Before you forgot, Asen, who had been silent the whole time, put a hand on Emma's shoulder. Maybe you should look at it, babe. Emma's hands were shaking as she picked up the diary. She opened it slowly, flipping through the pages. Her eyes scanned the words, her own words, written over a decade ago. I watched her face change. Confusion. Disbelief. Recognition. Pain. She read for several minutes in complete silence. The only sound in the room was the ticking of the kitchen clock and Claire's quiet crying. Finally, Emma closed the diary. Her face was wet with tears. I don't remember writing this. That's because he made you forget, I said softly. He spent years rewriting your memories, convincing you that I was the bad guy. But he was always there, Emma said, her voice shaking. He paid for everything. He took care of us. He used money to control you, Claire said. He used it to control both of us. Emma, I'm so sorry. I didn't see what he was doing. I was so blinded by the stability he provided that I let him poison your relationship with your father. Emma looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. Did you really work 2 jobs just to support us? She asked quietly. I nodded, unable to speak. I thought you just didn't want to be around me. I wanted nothing more than to be around you, I choked out. You were my whole world, Emma. You still are. I worked those jobs because I wanted to give you the best life I could. I know I wasn't perfect. I know I missed things. But I never stopped loving you. She broke down. Right there at the dinner table, my daughter, my strong, independent daughter, collapsed into sobs. Jason held her, looking completely shocked by everything he was hearing. There's more, Claire said quietly, pulling out her phone. I found text messages. Emails. Recordings. Richard documented his own manipulation without even realizing it. She played one of the voice memos. Richard's voice filled the room. Emma, when the therapist asks about your dad, just say you feel uncomfortable around him. You don't have to mean it, just say it. It'll help your mom get full custody, and then you won't have to do those awkward weekend visits anymore. You can stay here with us, where you're actually wanted. Emma's face went white. Oh my God. He coached you, Claire said. He lied to therapists, to your school, to everyone. He made sure you'd grow up thinking your father abandoned you. But why? Emma cried. Why would he do that? Because he wanted to replace me, I said quietly. He wanted to be your father. And the only way to do that was to erase me from your life. Emma put her face in her hands. I believed him. I believed everything he said. I thought you didn't care about me. I never stopped caring, I said, moving closer. Every single day, I thought about you. Every weekend I waited for you to come over, even when you clearly didn't want to be there. I showed up to every event, every recital, every game, hoping you'd see that I was trying. I never gave up on you, Emma. Not once. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. And for the first time in over a decade, my daughter hugged me. Really hugged me. She collapsed into my arms and sobbed, and I held her like I used to when she was little. I'm sorry, she kept repeating. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, I whispered. You were just a kid. He manipulated you. This is not your fault. We stayed like that for a long time. Claire was crying. Jason looked like he'd just witnessed something he'd never forget. Finally, Emma pulled away and wiped her eyes. I need to talk to Richard. No, Claire and I said at the same time. Emma, he's dangerous, Claire said. Not physically, but emotionally. He'll twist this. He'll make you doubt yourself. I don't care, Emma said firmly. He destroyed my relationship with my father for over a decade. He lied to me. He manipulated me. I need to confront him. I looked at Claire. She looked at me. We both knew we couldn't stop her. Then we go with you, I said. Emma nodded. Okay. Jason stood up. I'm coming too. And just like that, we had a plan. The next day, we went to Richard's hotel. Richard was staying at a high-end hotel downtown. Of course he was. Even in exile, he couldn't settle for anything less than luxury. Emma had called ahead and told him she wanted to talk. He'd sounded surprised but eager, probably thinking she was coming to take his side after Claire kicked him out. He had no idea what was coming. We met him in the hotel lobby. He was sitting in one of those fancy armchairs, sipping coffee like he didn't have a care in the world. When he saw Emma, his face lit up. Emma. Sweetheart, I'm so glad you called. Then he saw the rest of us. Me. Claire. Jason. His smile faded. What's going on? He asked carefully. We need to talk, Emma said, her voice steady but cold. About what? About the lies you told me for 13 years. Richard's face went pale. Just for a second, I saw a panic flash in his eyes. But then he recovered, putting on that charming smile he was so good at. Emma, I don't know what your mother has been telling you, but... She didn't tell me anything, Emma interrupted. I read my own diary. From when I was 13. Richard froze. You remember my diary, don't you? Emma continued. The one where I wrote about how you threatened me. How you manipulated me. How you turned me against my own father. Emma, you were a confused kid. I also heard the recording, Emma said, her voice shaking with anger. The one where you coached me on what to tell the therapist. Where you told me to lie and say I felt uncomfortable around my dad. There is no context that makes that okay. Emma shouted. People in the lobby were starting to stare, but she didn't care. You destroyed my relationship with my father. For over a decade, I believed he didn't care about me because you fed me lies. I gave you everything. Richard shot back, standing up. Richard's face turned red. That was taken out of context. There is no context that makes that okay. Emma shouted. People in the lobby were starting to stare, but she didn't care. You destroyed my relationship with my father. For over a decade, I believed he didn't care about me because you fed me lies. I gave you everything. Richard shot back, standing up. I paid for your school, your clothes, your college. I was there every single day while he was off working his pathetic jobs. He was working to support me. Emma screamed. And you used your money to manipulate me into thinking his love didn't matter. Richard opened his mouth to argue, but Jason stepped forward. I think you should stop talking, Jason said calmly. Before you make this worse. Richard looked at Jason, then back at Emma. His mask was slipping. The charming, caring stepfather act was crumbling, revealing the controlling, manipulative man underneath. Fine, Richard said coldly. You want the truth? Yes, I encouraged you to distance yourself from him. Because he wasn't a real father, Emma. Real fathers don't abandon their families. He didn't abandon us. Emma yelled. My mom divorced him. And he still showed up, every single weekend, every single event, trying to be in my life. But you couldn't handle that, could you? You couldn't handle the fact that I had a father who actually loved me. I loved you. You loved controlling me. Emma's voice cracked. You didn't want a daughter. You wanted ownership. You wanted to erase my real dad and replace him with yourself. And I almost let you. Tears were streaming down her face now, but her voice was strong. Certain. I chose you to walk me down the aisle because I believed your lies. I thought my dad didn't care about me. But he was there. In the 5th row. Crying. Watching the man who destroyed our relationship live out his moment. Richard's face was stone cold now. No more pretending. You're being dramatic. Get out, Claire said suddenly, stepping forward. Get out of our lives. I'm filing for divorce. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did. And if you ever try to contact Emma again, I'll make sure every single piece of evidence we have gets sent to your employer, your friends, your family. Everyone will know who you really are. Richard stared at her, fury in his eyes. But he knew he was beaten. Fine, he said quietly. But don't come crying to me when you realize how much you needed me. We never needed you, Claire said firmly. We just thought we did. Richard grabbed his coat and stormed out of the lobby without another word. The four of us stood there in silence for a moment, the weight of what just happened settling over us. Then Emma turned to me. Dad, can we start over? I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I'd like that. She hugged me again. And this time, it felt real. Like she was hugging her father, not a stranger. I have 13 years to make up for, she whispered. We have time, I said. We have all the time in the world. The weeks that followed weren't easy. Healing never is. Emma and I started meeting for coffee once a week. At first, the conversations were awkward, over a decade of distance doesn't disappear overnight. But slowly, carefully, we started rebuilding what Richard had destroyed. She asked me about the years she missed. About my life, my struggles, the jobs I worked. I told her everything. I didn't sugarcoat it. I admitted my mistakes, that I probably should have fought harder for more time with her, that maybe I should have seen the manipulation sooner. But I also told her the truth, that I loved her every single day, even when it felt like she hated me. And she told me her truth. About the guilt she'd been carrying. About the confusion she felt growing up, being pulled between two worlds. About how Richard's voice had been so constant in her head that she'd started to believe his version of reality. I'm so angry at myself, she said one afternoon. I wasted so much time believing his lies. You were a kid, I reminded her gently. You trusted the adults in your life. That's not your fault. But I should have questioned it. I should have. Emma, manipulation works because it's subtle. He didn't turn you against me overnight. He did it slowly, over the years, so carefully that you didn't even notice. You can't blame yourself for that. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I just wish I could go back and change it. We can't go back, I said. But we can move forward. Together. And we did. Claire and Emma's relationship also began to heal. Claire carried her own guilt, for not seeing what Richard was doing, for prioritizing financial stability over emotional truth. But Emma forgave her. Because at the end of the day, they were both victims of the same man. Claire filed for divorce. It was messy. Richard tried to fight it, tried to claim he was the victim, but the evidence was overwhelming. The diary, the texts, the recordings, it all painted a clear picture of who he really was. By the end, he didn't get a cent. Claire kept everything. Richard tried to reach out to Emma a few times. Emails. Text messages. Even a letter delivered to her apartment. Each one claimed he was misunderstood, that we turned her against him, that he only ever wanted what was best for her. Emma deleted every single one without responding. He doesn't get any more of my time, she told me firmly. He stole enough already. I was proud of her. So proud. Jason turned out to be an incredible support through all of this. He sat with Emma through the hard nights when the weight of everything hit her. He never judged, never made her feel weak for grieving the relationship she thought she had with Richard. "You're lucky to have him," I told her one day. "I know," she smiled. "He reminds me a lot of you, actually. The real you. The one I was too blind to see." That hit me hard. In a good way. 6 months after the confrontation, Emma did something that shocked me. She invited me to dinner at her and Jason's apartment. When I arrived, she handed me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside was a photo. A professional photo from her wedding day. But it had been edited. Richard was gone. And in his place, standing next to Emma in her beautiful white dress, was me. "I had it photoshopped," Emma said softly. "I know it can't change what happened. But I want this version, the version where you walked me down the aisle, to be the one I remember. The one I look at when I'm old. Because that's how it should have been." I couldn't speak. I just stared at the photo, tears streaming down my face. "I'm getting it framed," she continued. "And I'm putting it on our wall. Because you're my father. You always were. And I'm sorry it took me so long to remember that." I pulled her into a hug and held her tight. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you for giving me another chance. Thank you for never giving up on me," she whispered back. Today, 2 years later, Emma and I talk almost every day. We have dinner once a week, sometimes just the two of us, sometimes with Claire and Jason. We've created new traditions, new memories. She even asked me to teach her graphic design, the work I used to do late at night while she was growing up. The work she once resented me for. Now we spend weekends working on projects together, and she tells me it helps her feel connected to the father she missed out on knowing. Claire is doing well, too. She's dating someone new, a kind, genuine man who treats her with respect. Someone who doesn't need to control to feel powerful. As for Richard, I heard through mutual acquaintances that he tried the same pattern with another woman and her daughter. But this time, the mother saw through it immediately and cut him off. He's alone now. And while part of me feels sorry for him, because hurt people, I mostly just feel grateful that he can't damage anyone else I love. That if there's anything I've learned from this nightmare, it's this. Love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's working 2 jobs so your child can have a good life. Sometimes it's showing up to every event even when you're exhausted. Sometimes it's sitting in the 5th row, heartbroken, because you refuse to give up on someone you love. But manipulation? Manipulation is loud. It buys gifts. It makes grand gestures. It tells you exactly what you want to hear. And it does all of this while quietly destroying the real love that was there all along. Richard appeared to be the perfect father figure because he had time and money. But he used those things as weapons. He didn't love Emma. He loved the idea of owning her story, of being the hero. Real love doesn't need to destroy someone else to prove its worth. That hit me hard. In a good way. 6 months after the confrontation, Emma did something that shocked me. She invited me to dinner at her and Jason's apartment. When I arrived, she handed me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside was a photo. A professional photo from her wedding day. But it had been edited. Richard was gone. And in his place, standing next to Emma in her beautiful white dress, was me. "I had it photoshopped," Emma said softly. "I know it can't change what happened. But I want this version, the version where you walked me down the aisle, to be the one I remember. The one I look at when I'm old. Because that's how it should have been." I couldn't speak. I just stared at the photo, tears streaming down my face. "I'm getting it framed," she continued. "And I'm putting it on our wall. Because you're my father. You always were. And I'm sorry it took me so long to remember that." I pulled her into a hug and held her tight. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you for giving me another chance. Thank you for never giving up on me," she whispered back. Today, 2 years later, Emma and I talk almost every day. We have dinner once a week, sometimes just the two of us, sometimes with Claire and Jason. We've created new traditions, new memories. She even asked me to teach her graphic design, the work I used to do late at night while she was growing up. The work she once resented me for. Now we spend weekends working on projects together, and she tells me it helps her feel connected to the father she missed out on knowing. Claire is doing well, too. She's dating someone new, a kind, genuine man who treats her with respect. Someone who doesn't need to control to feel powerful. As for Richard, I heard through mutual acquaintances that he tried the same pattern with another woman and her daughter. But this time, the mother saw through it immediately and cut him off. He's alone now. And while part of me feels sorry for him, because hurt people, I mostly just feel grateful that he can't damage anyone else I love. That if there's anything I've learned from this nightmare, it's this. Love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's working 2 jobs so your child can have a good life. Sometimes it's showing up to every event even when you're exhausted. Sometimes it's sitting in the 5th row, heartbroken, because you refuse to give up on someone you love. But manipulation? Manipulation is loud. It buys gifts. It makes grand gestures. It tells you exactly what you want to hear. And it does all of this while quietly destroying the real love that was there all along. Richard appeared to be the perfect father figure because he had time and money. But he used those things as weapons. He didn't love Emma, he loved the idea of owning her story, of being the hero. Real love doesn't need to destroy someone else to prove its worth.